Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has announced above-inflation increases in so-called sin taxes as part of the 2026 budget, raising excise duties on alcohol and tobacco products from April. Now, Godongwana says excise duties on cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco and electronic nicotine products will increase in line with inflation. The government says the increases are necessary in order to support revenue collection and protect public finances while also helping to curb harmful consumption. All right, we're going to have a slight debate on this, maybe, if you want to call it that. Russel Rensburg, the Director of Rural Health Advocacy Project, together with the convener of the National Liquor Traders, Lucky Ntimane, both joining us for this conversation this morning. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate it. A good morning to both of you. Russel, maybe let me start with you. The minister yesterday emphasizing these taxes, excise duties on these products, especially alcohol, unavoidable, but aligned with inflation or those increases. Is that inflation increase sufficient, you think?
No, because essentially means the price stays the same, right? And if you think about it in real terms, South Africans spend around 417 million rand a day on alcohol. In the run-up to December or New Year's, we spent around R1 billion a day on alcohol. And when you consider that alcohol, excessive alcohol consumption, contributes to a lot of social harm, we saw during COVID, for instance, when we had a ban on alcohol, how sharply we had a drop in trauma cases. So I think having responsible drinking is a very important, is a useful and important thing. However, you know, a 3% inflation adjustment just means in real term, prices remain the same. They don't act as any kind of public health deterrent in reducing consumption. And we feel the minister should have increased by at least 15%. When you consider that the increase in a can of beer is less than 10 cents, you know, so in real terms, there's no increase. So yeah, we're pleased with some adjustment, but I think we would have been a little bit more bolder if we went towards 10%, particularly on beer, you know, because beer makes up 72% of alcohol consumption.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, 10 to 15%, Lucky. Your thoughts?
Good morning, Arabil, and good morning to Russell, and thank you for the opportunity. Look, we welcome the adjustment made by the minister in line with inflation, because the industry has not known such an announcement in a very long time. We've always been hit with the number almost over 6% for the past 5 years. So we feel that, you know, the reality that we're in, where we are faced with the emerging alcohol industry that is now wholly illegal, accounting for about 20%, which is the illicit and counterfeit alcohol. So we feel that this is a step in the right direction to be able to counter that. Because if we leave that unchecked, we'll run into an issue where almost our industry will be overwhelmed by illegal operators that are coming into our space, selling products that are harmful to our people. Yes, we understand the issue, you know, of wanting to address irresponsible usage of alcohol. And we've always said that, you know, this is the issue that we cannot afford to sweep under the carpet as a country. Is something that we should be able to tackle. And excise duties are not the right instruments to be able to address this. I think we should look at other alternatives that will be able to help us find a sustainable solution to be able to address the issue of alcohol abuse in our country. Yes, people do abuse alcohol, but the majority of our people drink alcohol in a responsible way, and majority of our traders sell alcohol in a responsible way.
Yeah, and maybe to your, I don't know. I don't know if this is to your point or not. Lucky, we've had word from Diageo. This was before the budget. And they were saying that if you had the cost of alcohol, spirits that is, increased by 6% in this budget, that would mean that on average for a 700 milliliter bottle of spirits, that 100 rand of that cost would now be going directly just to taxes. And they're saying that that would be unsustainable. It's not something they'd be able to continue to give the consumer, and they would continue to struggle with that. Do you think that even the delay of the implementation to April gives traders and even consumers a short reprieve, maybe, kind of citing the economic strain, Lucky, on the liquor industry?
Yes, indeed, it does give us a little bit of a reprieve, because anyway, what our people have done in the past, and we've seen the growth of the illicit alcohol in the past 7 years, even gone up by 55%. People will always look for better options, and unfortunately, the better options are those that people should not actually be consuming. So we want to protect the legal market, but at the same time, we understand some of the issues that are highlighted by civil society, that we also need to ensure that we balance the issue of lives, and also, in our case, the livelihood issue also needs to be brought into the table. So it's a delicate balance that we need to strike as a country, because we cannot come and sit here and say that irresponsible use of alcohol is not a problem in our country. It is a problem in our country, but we should not find blunt object or blunt instrument as a way to address these issues. We need a sustainable solution to be able to address this issue.
Russell, is it a blunt instrument?
Most certainly not, man. I think the World Health Organization points out that this is a fairly neutral instrument that we've been using for several years, right? In the short term, it reduces demand by making alcohol more expensive. In the near term, it averts health costs related to trauma, interpersonal violence, and other alcohol-related illnesses, including diabetes. And in the short term, it raises much needed revenue to invest in the health system. So yes, we have to find a good balance, but I don't think it's a blunt instrument. It's been demonstrated to work quite well globally. And hence, there's a call now for, if we want to contribute to the development of healthy societies, we have to use the different tools at our disposal. It's also very targeted. Responsible drinkers will always drink responsibly. Irresponsible drinkers not. We have a binge drinking culture. There's very little we do at the point of sale to reduce that, because it's counterintuitive for the bar operator, whatever, to tell people not drink. And anybody can go to the Groove on a Sunday and you can see that responsible drinking is maybe an oxymoron. We have to try and find a balance. We are a relatively young population, with close to half our population now under 40. And we need to start thinking about how do we work proactively around alcohol and alcohol consumption, because our binge drinking culture is not sustainable.
If we have
It deteriorates social capital. And yes, well, livelihoods are important, but we also have to balance livelihoods with social good and how do we want to grow as a society. And I think we need to find the efficiencies. On illicit alcohol sales, I think it's very important that Lucky and our colleagues in that space open up the data so we can understand. My own experience, having grown up in the retail alcohol industry, there is an industry that's very, very brand conscious. We'll know, for instance, we changed the label on Castle Lager and consumption went down. Right, so people are very, very conscious of brands. I think we don't really do a lot of substitution, and if we do, there's a whole range of categories within the spirits market where the price range is different. I saw, for instance, on black market that people were spending close to 5,000 Rand on 3 bottles of brandy. Right, so I think there's a fair amount of room within that space. But yes, responsible trade is as important as responsible consumption. And we need to find the balance some around. And I think increasing these taxes way above inflation is an important public health tool to reduce and control excessive consumption. Thank you.
Russell, I know you said that you especially from international marks and et cetera, you've seen it kind of working, but is it really working locally? And I say that just because the amount of alcohol consumption we're seeing already, despite the taxes, where even 100 Rand close to is going to just to taxes, if you're talking about a 750 milliliter of spirits. And it's meant to be a deterrence tax. And yet it feels like it's not really deterring people. The number of accidents we still see on the roads, for example, because of alcohol, is still happening. So should there be many more ways to do this and to sort out this issue as opposed to just this tax? Just asking.
100%. You know, I think we need probably responsible education and a fair amount of work to go into that culture. You know, our drinking culture is something that's come with our oppression as a society, where African men and men of color were brought into the big cities, and we really legislated beer halls, right? So we made drinking, and I don't have to tell anybody about the DOP system. Where part of your remuneration was alcohol. But if people are continuing consuming these taxes are blunt instrument, then we should make them higher, because clearly the market can take more if we don't see a significant drop in consumption. But over and above that, like with most abuse of, be it any kind of substance, I think we need a fair amount of public education. And just like a couple of ads flighted every now and then about responsible drinking isn't necessarily the tool to go through it, right? But I don't have the answer to all things. All we're saying is, at the end of the day, increasing the taxes reduces consumption by increasing the price. Reduced consumption leads to reduced health costs. And in the short term, because things will reduce over time, they generate enough revenue for us to invest in improved district health services, including expanding access to mental health care, which is one of the issues that contribute to excessive alcohol consumption. But really, we have to find the right balance. But if consumption isn't out, maybe there's room for more taxes, right? And I think ultimately that's going to determine the direction.
Like you've said before, more taxes just hurts jobs, hurts small businesses.
No, certainly. But we don't want to hide behind the issue of jobs. I think we need to look at the current realities. I mean, comparisons that are being made to other countries, yes, they are welcome because we do understand where Russel is coming from, and we actually appreciate the work that is doing in communities to ensure that the issues of irresponsible use of alcohol are being addressed. But we cannot have this conversation in isolation and forget the realities that we are now faced with, especially in the advent of COVID-19, where we saw the spike of illicit and counterfeit alcohol, which now accounts to over 20% of the legal market. So 1 in 5 products that are sold in South Africa are actually fake. And these are some of the issues that lend themselves into the drinking culture to see when people will have consumption of these products and they will have hangover for 3 days or so. So this is a worrying trend for us. So we should be able to address the issue of illicit and counterfeit alcohol, but also being able to have proper conversation of how do we protect the legal market. We cannot have taxes that punish the legal market, which accounts for a lot of jobs that we see in the communities. 250,000 jobs are supported by taverns in South Africa. So these conversations need to be had, and we're grateful that we're able to engage with someone like Russel because we want the same thing. We are citizens of this country. We see ourselves as citizens of this country before we are business people. So we cannot really put the profits ahead of the lives of our people. So yes, it's a delicate balance, but we're willing to have this conversation so that at the end of the day, we have a sustainable culture that will drink alcohol in a responsible way, but also grow our economies in a responsible way.
Russel, does this unfairly impact and punish consumers?
I don't think it. I've been appreciative, Lucky's. Look, at the end of the day, we are not living in the handmaid's tale where we have a strong nanny culture. People can't do this, that, and the other. I think we just have to use the tools. Responsible drinking is good for everyone in the long run. We know we have a binge culture in the short term. But I think what we need to really consider is that we have to find the right balance. And there's a host of different interventions that we can use. In terms of the illegal market, I think that's important, but those guys pay no taxes, right? They don't contribute to anything. But what we can say is at least there was almost R1 billion investment in border management in yesterday's budget, which is look at increasing or improving the management of our borders will be important for illicit sales of cigarettes and of alcohol. But the excise taxes is not a tool for illicit trade, right? I think there's compliance issues that we need to work with there. The excise tax is a tool to reduce consumption at the tap, right? It's a public health instrument, and we can't conflate the two. I think it's very important that we do invest more in our borders and border control. We invest more in some of the things that the President mentioned in his State of the Nation address. We spoke about a minimum unit pricing, reducing high volume alcohol sales, like big containers, 2 liters, 5 liters, 20 liters, right? Just to make sure that we can, in somehow, modulate consumption. Because it isn't the only tool to reduce consumption. But excise taxes are an important consideration. We need investments in other areas, particularly to contain illicit alcohol and cigarette sales. And I think that is about border and customs management. And we know the investment in SARS and investment in border management will contribute to that. But the excise tax, there's no direct causal relationship with people are necessarily increasing consumption of illicit alcohol as a result of excise taxes. Thank you.
Well, let's look at all of it, right? And this is the poll question we're then asking our audience, and we can get a quick, very, very quick comment from both of you on this, because our poll question today is, will higher alcohol and tobacco prices or taxes change your spending habits? It's pretty mixed. Some saying yes, they'll reduce, others saying no, I'll carry on. Let's get commentary on from both of you on this very, very quickly. Russel, what do you think?
Well, first thing is, how big is the poll? Right.
True. Look, it's okay. It hasn't completed itself as yet, and obviously this is just the audience watching at the time. So yes, not as big as perhaps we want it to be.
Yeah, well, I think if we add that, everybody thinks about stopping cigarettes. Everybody thinks about stopping drinking, right? So I think the first response will always say, "And I'll reduce consumption." But if it's the only tool, right, then that doesn't sustain over time.
Yeah.
Right? I agree with Lucky that this is not the only tool to reduce consumption. It's an important tool, but it's part of a number of interventions that we have to utilize. So the excess taxes, minimum unit pricing, mean that there's a baseline that we can charge on. Responsible drinking and education, that is an education issue. And over time, we can maybe change this trend of being what I call a binge culture drinking.
Yeah.
We may not, so I think that the poll for me reflects a fair reflection of how people feel at any given moment.
Lucky.
But we really do have a problem with excessive drinking. Thank you, over.
Lucky, your thoughts?
Let me make this disclaimer. Liquor traders are not an enemy of public health nor fiscal stability in our country. So, but looking at the polls, I think it tells the story that, our people understand what the issues are, especially as it pertains to alcohol. And there is some sense of awareness of what people ought to do to be able to be on the right side of the law in terms of why they consume alcohol, especially around the issue of drinking and driving. And Russell mentioned something very important that I think we don't talk about a lot in this country: the issue of binge drinking. We do see sentiments around glorifying of alcohol, which lends itself to how people consume alcohol almost at a faster rate, which then becomes binge drinking. This is something that we also need to address. This is something that also worries us as liquor traders, because we are seeing a trend, where even those that, are consuming alcohol, will maybe have a competition where I'll finish this bottle. And we saw some of the reports during COVID-19 where a gentleman in Limpopo finished a whole bottle and he collapsed and died. So we are concerned because we cannot lose our customers in a senseless way like this. So we need to be able to create safe spaces and safe zones as liquor traders where our people can consume alcohol irresponsibly. So all these concerns that Russell has raised, we are worried about. But I think enough talk, we need to find a way in which we are able to, have some tools that, we can put on the table to be able to address the issue of irresponsibility of alcohol. But we maintain that, excess tax are not the only tools that, should be considered by everyone as a solution to fighting this. In fact, we contend that they are blunt objects.
Convener of the National Liquor Traders, Lucky Ntimane, as well then as the from Rural Health Advocacy Project, Russel Rensburg, the director of that Rural Healthcare Advocacy Project. Thank you to both of you. Really appreciate your insights and thoughts this morning. And the poll will continue this morning. So if you two want to vote on it too, please join in. Just scan the QR code and you can have your say, and hopefully it sways the votes as well. So appreciate your time this morning.